legislation now, last part of human resources or people in business for Unit 1. And this is very similar to the section that we looked at with consumer protection, but instead of looking at consumer rights, we're looking at employees' rights. So you need to know the legal responsibilities of employers and their staff. And we're going to go through these 4 laws as well. And remember, the things that we learnt about from consumer protection will still stand here. So businesses want to make sure that they follow these laws because they can get taken to court. There can be some very bad publicity that can surround it, bad word of mouth and those types of things. So here, first one looking at is the Equal Pay Act. So it means that employers must pay men and women the same rate of pay if they're doing the same job. Okay, so before this, and you can see that this came in the 70s, before this you'd routinely get in some industries men being paid more than women were, and this was, you can't discriminate on these terms now anymore, but we still see a kind of legacy of that having an effect in, and other reasons as well, but women are on average paid less than men. So if we look at the average wage of a woman in this country and average wage of men, women are paid about 80% of what men are paid. So we're still seeing unequal pay, but if they're in a particular business doing the same job, they must get the same rate of pay. The Minimum Wage Act, this is one that was brought in the 1990s, late 90s, and businesses cannot pay below that rate of pay, even if an employee is willing to work for less than that. So that's something that you'll want to have a look at. I looked these up in about December last year for 2015 to see what those rates would be. But you can see there that the highest rate for the minimum wage for people that are 21 and over, £6.70, is still below the living wage, which is around about £7 and above, and that is the rate of pay that we think is reasonable for somebody to take part and have a reasonable standard of living and take part in society. So still like quite a low rate of pay that you'd be earning if you were on the minimum wage, but that can increase firms' costs whenever the government increase minimum wages, and they tend to adjust them a little bit every year, and they're usually adjusted upwards so they become higher. Anybody that's earning the minimum wage has to then be paid a bit more, so it does increase firms' costs. Discrimination legislation, there's lots of that. So we already know that you can't discriminate against any person in the workplace on the grounds of their gender with the Equal Pay Act, but you can't treat men more favourably than women or women more favourably than men. So for example, if you had a fringe benefit and you were just giving free food, say, to male members of the workforce, that would be discrimination. If it was to a certain ethnicity, to a certain age range, or you weren't making reasonable adaptations for people with disabilities and you were treating them less fairly than those people without disabilities, that would be discrimination. So you can't treat anybody differently because of those reasons there. And then people have employment rights, and this is really, really important to have a look at when you get your first job, when you're a bit older, and it's really important to read through the contract that you're given as well, because you'll want to have a look at sick pay and how many sick days that you're entitled to, because unless someone's skiving when you're sick, you're not wanting to be sick, so that can make a big difference. And there are statutory rights that employees have, and they are allowed a certain number of sick days. Paternity and maternity leave now becoming a little bit more equal as well. Leave can be transferred from the woman to the man or to the partner. It could be a same-sex partnership, now to make things a little bit more equal. And people are entitled to a certain number of holidays every year. So I think that stands at 28 days, not including your kind of weekends as well. But I think within those 28 days, bank holidays do appear. So there are 6 bank holidays, I think, in the UK. So that would be, I suppose it's really 22 days holiday a year. But lots of businesses give more than that. But if they're giving less, then that's a problem. And then health and safety as well. Employers have to provide a safe working environment, and they have to make sure that they're not putting their employees in harm's way. Just like when we looked at consumer protection, we said that consumers are eligible for compensation if they're harmed by the product, if they're using it in the proper way. The Health and Safety Acts for employees would stand if they're at their job and they're operating their job or whatever it is, the piece of machinery, in the appropriate manner, and they're injured, then they have a right to compensation. So that could be very costly for the business. So it's just having an awareness of some of these rules and regulations that exist. I know that in a past paper before, there's been an advert and you had to write about what was inappropriate about the advert, and one of the things could be discrimination on the advert. I think there was something about age or fitness or something like that. So that could be against discrimination laws. But also you could have a case study that looks at the working environment, and it could be something about unsafe working environments as well. So knowing the health and just a few basic details about the Health and Safety Act would help you there.